What's up, Tesla family? It's Ray J back with another video. And in this one, I want to break down what's happening with Tesla SPY in the overall markets. I'm going to talk about this possible inverse head and shoulders like pattern that's developing on Tesla, what you should be watching for to see if Tesla's going to bounce or not. I'm also going to break down a very, very interesting connection between futures and some of these ETFs, because this could be signaling another big push that could be coming to the markets. But just know that I am not a financial planner, so take nothing I say as financial advice. And also, if you guys can, please check out my Moomoo link. If you deposit $100, you're guaranteed 5 free stocks. If you deposit $2,000, you're guaranteed 30 in total. And the offer ends very soon at the end of March. So, as far as Tesla is going, we have a very interesting trend right here. Tesla managed to hold the support very close to about 348, just under the 350 area. And we managed to also hold above our 20 EMA, which is a very, very good sign so far. So, one thing worth mentioning is the fact that Tesla is very news dependent. A lot of the things that affect this is news. There's been a lot of bad news that came out last week and also parts of this week, which caused Tesla to dump. But ever since we got this massive dump, Tesla's been trying to rebound a little bit. Now, whether or not we turn bullish or bearish is going to depend on some key levels. I will talk about those in just a couple of minutes. But let's first talk about another catalyst, that is Donald Trump. So, for those who don't like politics, I completely understand why you would not want to hear about it. It's a like usually it's a headache when we go into like a lot of details. But what I try to do is I'm not going to go over specific details to be biased. I simply want to be very unbiased and talk about what Donald Trump has been saying a little bit more often, because he affects the markets big time, believe it or not. So let me show you some proof of that. So, for example, why does Donald Trump affect the markets? Because his policies affect the US economy, his words affect businesses, and they will be affecting what we end up seeing. So, for example, look at what happened on January 31st. The stock market was pushing near all time highs. SPY was at 610. Donald Trump opens his mouth and he says he's going to be imposing tariffs on Canada, Mexico, and China starting on February 1st. As soon as he said that, SPY dumps 20 points, all the way down to 590. We got a massive, massive, massive dump. Okay. And then the news came out that actually the tariffs on Canada and Mexico were delayed. The Chinese ones were imposed with some exceptions. And the market started to recover because of that. Market made a full recovery. Then last week, Donald Trump says that he's going to be announcing more tariffs. They're going to be big. SPY goes from 608 and it dumps all the way down to 600. And then SPY is consolidating pretty much all week, with one dump right over here before it got bought back up. That was because of CPI. Despite the fact that we got hot CPIs and PPIs, the market still held up. And then what happened was yesterday, SPY was at this 602 area. Then Donald Trump opened his mouth again. He had another speech to give, and we saw SPY rocket towards all-time highs. So we ran about 8 points. My point is Donald Trump is different. He's causing lots of volatility in the markets, and that's the reason why we have to kind of talk about what he's saying. That's why it's very important for me to bring this up. I'm not going to be biased when I do it. I'm just going to read his quotes for you guys and what he's basically focusing on, because that's going to cause some interesting moves. So what did Donald Trump say today? He gave a speech and he did mention some very important things. Firstly, he said that he wants to sign an order to create energy dominance, the Energy Dominance Council, excuse me. He also mentioned that the US has more energy than any other countries, and he's working on a pipeline held up by New York to bring down energy prices, in his words. He then talked about steel prices. He said that with tariffs, US steel is going to be a real powerhouse again, and he would not mind if Japan gets a minority stake in US steel. But that's pretty much it when it comes to like tariffs and such that he said. But then Donald Trump also mentioned that he has been negotiating with Ukraine and Russia, and that he wants there to be peace as soon as possible. So that could be the next catalyst for the market, because as soon as he mentioned that he's going to be meeting up with these leaders, we saw the market rally yesterday. So if there's news that comes out over the weekend or next week and Donald Trump starts talking about peace negotiations with Russia and Ukraine and something else happens, that may cause more volatility. So please keep that in mind. I think that's the next big catalyst to be watching for. That could cause a very, very big move. So get ready just to be safe. But once again, this is just a possibility. We'll see what else ends up being said. And I want to keep you guys updated on what Donald Trump has been saying. I'm once again not saying he's right or wrong about anything. I'm simply just reading his transcript for you guys, just to give you guys that unbiased analysis. And remember, it's going to be affecting the markets, which is why it's very important to pay attention. Now, a couple of things about the market for next week. Okay. Today is Friday. It's Valentine's Day. So have a happy Valentine's Day, whether you guys are alone or with someone. Completely understandable. And remember, no matter where you are, what circumstance you're in, the future is still bright. We have the power to forge better futures if we work hard and improve ourselves. So I just wish you guys the best, no matter what circumstances you're in today. But moving forward, Monday is going to be February 17th. This is also very important because it's going to be George Washington's birthday, also known as President's Day, and the stock market is going to be closed in honor of him. So, in honor of him and the presidents of the United States, we're going to have a closure, and the bonds market's also going to be closed. So, what this means is there will not be trading on Monday. We're going to be back to normal on Tuesday. So, just keep that in mind. No trading until Tuesday, at least for normal equities, and the bonds market will be closed as well. For earnings, it's all very, very minor. There's not really a whole lot that's coming out. We just have a couple of them. We have like Baidu, that's like in Mandarin. I may not be saying that right. Then we have ES and a few more. Carvana, Alibaba, and Walmart and Unity on Thursday. Rivian's going to be a big one to watch for, but that's pretty much it. And then on top of this, fear is making up the majority of sentiment right now. Momentum is neutral for the markets, and the put to call option ratio started to go down. I mentioned to you all that as soon as we started to see the put to call option ratio going up, the market makers ended up squeezing shorts. I was very cautious about Donald Trump announcing his tariffs yesterday for the overall market initially, but because the market kept bouncing, even though we got hot inflationary numbers, I had the suspicion that good news could be bad news and bad news could be good news. That's why I give you guys a warning about the possibility that maybe the market could push even if Donald Trump opens his mouth, which is very ironic. Despite new tariffs being imposed, Donald Trump saying he wants to increase tariffs by April 2nd on uh, uh, cars, not to mention possibly semiconductors soon and pharmaceuticals, the market still rallied. It did not care. The market is still very resilient. So, with that being said, let's talk about the charts. What do I see for Tesla and the others? So, one thing that's not good about Tesla is the fact that we're on a downtrend, technically speaking. What I mean is we had this high up here at the 488 area we rejected, lower high rejected, lower high rejection, rejection, rejection over and over again. But then what happened was we got a very, very big dump with all this bad news that was coming out about how Tesla's January sales were declining. Their sales in Europe, especially, were down between 30 and 50%, 60% in some regions like Germany. Then we also started to see news about how their American sales were down about over 11.5%. Same thing with the Chinese ones. So sales all over the world are down for them. Now there were some questions about, was this because of Elon Musk's politics solely, or could it also be because of the fact that the Model Y refresh is coming out and these Tesla investors are just getting ready for that? Tesla buyers, investors, and etc. And that's the reason why we saw this dump. So that could be another reason why, because when the refresh comes out, things could reverse pretty quickly. So with that being said, there was all this bad news coming out. There was even news that came out about how Tesla did not secure a contract with the State Department, the $400 million contract for them to be buying those armored vehicles from Tesla. That was not secured, which is not the best of news. Despite that, Tesla held up quite nicely. So what's interesting is that we're trying to reverse now. It's attempting to reverse, especially as we formed a wick right here. But when you go back on the chart, you guys will notice that we have this resistance over here. So we have this 362 area as a very, very tough resistance. Back in like November to December, Tesla formed a cup and handle here. So we had 362 to 360, 362 to 363, excuse me. We rejected. We hit the 362s again, rejected. 362 again, rejected. Three big rejections before it finally broke past this to really start pushing. So this particular level has a lot of resistance, at least historically. And that's why I'm going to be calling this out again as a very, very key level. So the market has a tendency of remembering supply and demand. It remembers everything, right? It's very, very wild. So in this case, I want to see Tesla break 360. If we break this next week, we're looking for an attempt to push even higher for like the 370s pretty easily, then possibly back up to this trend line, which is in the 390s. But that's going to be for later. We're not going to focus on that yet. All I care about is 362. Can we break past that or not? If we lose 345-ish, we could be dipping back down towards the 335 area right down here. If we continue to break past resistance, we're looking for a bounce. The setup on Tesla is looking like we have a potential inverse head and shoulders. So you could argue that this is like our left shoulder right here. This is like a head, right? And then this is like our potential right shoulder. If we break 362, I think this launches for like 375 or so, right back up to where this wick is. There's a very good chance that's going to happen, but I can't make promises. This depends on some news. It depends on something that Donald Trump could announce involving, peace negotiations and tariffs. It depends on news about Tesla itself. Do we get some good news or bad news over the weekend? All of that's going to be affecting us. For now, the most likely setup is possible inverse head and shoulders. If we get a push as soon as Tuesday comes and Tesla manages to break this resistance, I'm looking for a bounce. I find that to be a bit more probable, but we'll see just to be safe. Now, what about SPY and the QQQ? I am seeing something very crazy that's going on. So, one thing worth mentioning is that after Donald Trump talked about the tariffs yesterday, the market launched towards all-time highs. Now, today, SPY, what it did is it made a somewhat new all-time high by about 20 cents. Then it came right back down. And the setup is very simple. So, what's happening is if we close below and can't hold 608, okay, if we make a move like this and we close below this and we can't hold this, we're going to likely dip closer to 605. If we don't basically hold above 608, there's a good chance of that rejection. If we break the all-time high and we close above it, I think our next target is going to be 612.5, then eventually back up towards 615. So all the way back up here is what we're going to be looking for. So that's what we're looking for, at least on SPY thus far. Now, what if there's a little bit of trickery in both directions? And this is what I think could be coming. So I noticed that on SPY, we have a bearish divergence right over here relative to our MACD. There's a slight bearish divergence. Typically, especially as we're at this tough resistance, you would see a bit of a pullback. There might be a small pullback here to like 606, 607. That would be completely healthy. And then that could be them just tricking us. Maybe we don't close below 608. Maybe we dip a bit, then we just get bought back up like this. And that could be a little dip for them to prepare us for this next run back up to 612 to 615. I think it's very probable we try to do this because of what I'm seeing on different setups. So, what I find very interesting is this is very possible for now, depending on the news. But notice that SPY is already at all-time highs. It already touched them. But then ES is different. ES is not near its all-time high. It's actually quite below it, and it's trying to play a game of catch-up. So the all-time high of ES is actually around the 6180s. We're not there yet. We're not even at this resistance right here around the 6160s. We're still well below that. So that makes me suspect that we have this like inverse head and shoulders like setup right here, and that ES could be looking for a breakout. So ES, check this out. We have these channels right over here that we're developing. And with these channels, we got this break for the next leg up once we broke the resistance right here where this trend line was. Right. So this was the first leg up. The second leg up was right over here. We basically started to push after CPI was hot, PPI was hot despite bad inflationary numbers. Market continued to push. So this could be the next leg up, right? And this could be trying to get up to about the previous all-time highs. The all-time highs are like right up here where this trendline resistance is. We haven't really gotten there yet, and we could be looking for new highs if that breaks. So what would be healthy is if ES dips a little bit. So long as we don't lose 6100, we could just be looking for a small dip to the lower 6100s, 6120 to 6100 flats. As long as that holds, we could see a small dip and then a continuation to at least the all-time high at the 6180s or even above that. We could be looking for an attempt for 6200 basically. This is looking like a potential breakout from this wedge already. So that is a very, very good setup so far. And this could be favoring upside. So what's interesting is when you compare this to SPY, SPY is already at its all-time high. It already made it. This is above the way ES is trading. ES is behind. So what I suspect could be happening is if ES is about to see a pump, we might dip a bit first and then start pushing. And then this might be on its way to its all-time high. If ES goes to its new all-time high, which is still quite a distance away, it's going to pump a lot. And while that happens, SPY might be breaking new all-time highs, which is why there is a notion that we could be getting ready for a big pump for the next leg up. And we're seeing this interesting trend right now. There's another interesting trend. So if you look at, for example, the QQQ, there's the inverse head and shoulders here. Notice something. We have this left shoulder, right? Right over here. We have a head. Then we have a right shoulder. And then we're approaching the top right here. Notice the top is at the all-time high near 540 or a little bit under that. We're already there on the QQQ. We pushed thanks to Nvda. But then two things. When you look at NQ, It hasn't reached the all-time high yet. It has the same setup, but it's not quite there. It has like a left shoulder, a head, and then a right shoulder. And this is looking bullish. So if this does dip to about the 22,100 area, as long as you don't lose 22,000, it could continue to push for 22,400 with an inverse head and shoulder setup. A nice rebound, a nice uptrend could be coming for NQ. And as this tries to push for its all-time high, there's a very good chance that the QQQ is going to try to follow this trend. The QQQ could be launched to new all-time highs as a result into the 540s as we start to see this push. What else could help the QQQ launch higher is, and once again, like we could get a small pullback first before we get this big launch. So if we do get a small pullback to like 533 to 535, completely healthy before we start pushing for the 540s like that could be coming because of the fact that NQ, the NASDAQ want to push higher. Then we have Nvda, which could also help us launch. Nvidia is trying to push right here. Notice that Nvidia is still down compared to where it was before. We had the all-time high in Nvidia beforehand, and then what happened to Nvidia was we got the DeepSeek news, which caused a pullback, but now it's trying to make a full recovery to fill this gap. So I think Nvidia is going to push for 142 to fill this gap. The 140 should be coming, then eventually the 150 area right before earnings, which is less than 2 weeks from now. So I think that's going to most likely come. Nvidia is going to pump. Apple is looking bullish. It's going to likely try to continue this trend. Why? Because we have like a triple bottom here, and then we have this imbalance around this like 247 area. So that could be favoring, once again, a nice push to the upside for the 240s. There's a good chance this inverse head and shoulders pans out, and we just try to continue to go with this triple bottom. So this could dip here, retest 242, then bounce for 248 to 250. And if this is an inverse head and shoulders, maybe it goes even higher for the 250s. For now, we're looking for this imbalance. So what do I mean by that? It's very simple to understand. There's an imbalance over here, this big red bar. We're trying to fill that. So starting up here, 247, we came down, right? We have a triple bottom. And now we're trying to uptrend back up towards this high right here at the 247s. We're not there yet. We're getting closer, so it does have more upside potential as a result. So we have Apple potentially pushing higher. Maybe we dip first, then bounce higher. Nvidia is going to likely do the same thing. NQ is trying to push towards its all-time high. It looks like it wants to go there. We have a nice inverse head and shoulders setup in the full measured move, takes you up to about the 22,400 plus area. Might dip a bit first and start pushing. That in turn could help the QQQ go even higher. All these bullish setups could help the QQQ go higher to break all-time highs. ES, same thing, right? It's trying to break out of this channel. It hasn't hit the all-time high yet. It might be going for it. If we do get a small pullback completely healthy before it tries to bounce, and then that could also help SPY try to break its all-time high. So do you guys see the connection there about how we're getting lots of bullish setups right now? Even if the market gets a small pullback for now, we do look this way. Now, this could change depending on if Donald Trump announces something, if there's some kind of news. For now, we do look a bit more bullish, at least technically speaking. Let me go over just a few more. Palantir looks bullish. As long as we don't lose 115, I'm favoring like 120 plus. I think it's doing a great job at holding up. AMD is trying to rebound here. Although there's an imbalance here, I'm not counting on that yet. We actually have a strong trend line coming first. So see this big white trend line. This is our resistance. We rejected every time we've hit this. So in this case, I wouldn't be surprised if we actually try to push a bit next week, possibly thanks to Nvidia pumping. And we might be trying to test this trend line. Then we'll see if we get some kind of rejection off of this or if we continue to break through it for the 118s to fill this imbalance. It all depends if you could break the trend line or not. So just keep that in mind, please. For a few more, coin is looking a little bit weaker. Might dip a bit more towards like 270 flat before it tries to bounce. For Amazon, we have resistance at 230 and support around 225. Might be dipping closer to about 225, just a little bit lower. Sorry, not 225, 227.5, then 225 if that fails us. Might be a small dip on Amazon before it tries to rebound. It still looks kind of bearish right here. Could there be a wedge forming? Maybe, but I'm not counting on it yet. We just look a little bearish for the time being. Meta looks bullish. As long as we don't lose 724, we're continuing to uptrend for 740. I think there's a good chance we try to get all the way back up there. Microsoft is kind of flat right here, trying to base at 405. There's a good chance it does dip a bit more to kind of retest that. And then Google is looking a little bit more promising. If we break past 188, we're looking for a push. However, I do see a potential inverse head and shoulders here, especially with this imbalance. So just to clarify, right, you have this left shoulder, a head, and then maybe a right shoulder. If we break 189, we're looking for this imbalance to fill for 193. But it all depends on if we could break resistance or not. If we don't break 189, all this is doing is just trading sideways like this. This is all it's doing for now. But if we break 189, we're looking for this imbalance fill for the inverse head and shoulders confluence. That would be a lot more bullish if you end up getting that. So with that being said, the VIX is on a bit of a downtrend right now. It's making lower highs. We got this rejection. I wouldn't be surprised if we see a small bounce in the VIX before it starts to dump. So notice there's these gaps down here. I think we're going to be filling some of these gaps to about the 13s. So what if we basically like rebound a little bit? Maybe the market pulls back a bit, and then this continues to reject back down to these lows into like the 13s. And then even if that's the case, we could still see a big bounce later on. Maybe as we get closer to like March, that's going to likely be what's about to happen. So that's my view, guys. Market might dip a little bit before it tries to rebound. There might be a big rally coming, and that could help Tesla push even more. But whether or not that happens is going to depend on news and factors like that. So we'll see about that. I personally hope that the inverse head and shoulders pans out for Tesla and we see Tesla run even more. I would love to see it, but just to be safe, we have to wait and see. The daily chart is also looking promising, but it's not really breaking 362 yet. I would love to see it break that. So we'll see if that ends up being the case. Anyways, thank you all so much for listening. Have a good weekend. Have a very happy Valentine's Day. Like I said before, it doesn't matter what circumstances you guys are in. It's always a great day. It's always a good day to improve yourselves and keep your heads up no matter what. So I wish you all the best no matter where you guys are. Have a very happy Valentine's Day. I just want you guys to have a good night. Enjoy the long weekend as we have President's Day off. And I'll be back with another update, possibly tomorrow, if not by Sunday and Monday for sure. I will upload a video on Sunday and Monday. I'm not too sure about tomorrow. We'll see about that. That depends on how I'm feeling and what my schedule is looking like. However, until I see you guys again, have a good one and peace out.